Good morning, LinkedIn family. Time for another coffee with Bob. I'm very excited today I always love introducing new connections. Adam Marks and I are fairly newly connected. And what's really more exciting is that the ultimate networker. He loves helping people connect. And, I think that one connection can change a life. I really do believe that. And I think Adam could be one of those connections. If you haven't connected with him yet, try and connect. Definitely follow him and please engage with him because he's a very engaging young man. Adam, thank you so much for being with us.
I don't know how I'm going to top that. It was immensely flattering. I'm so excited to be here because I think that our dialogue today is a perfect example of what I love to do. We met when I did Rachel Beck's podcast, and you reached out to me. And Rachel's a wonderful and close friend of mine. I'm actually speaking to her, I think, later today or tomorrow.
Awesome.
And when she's like, "Oh yeah, you got to get on Bob's podcast and do his show," and I think that that's just a perfectly encapsulated example of like one conversation leads to immense opportunities and open doors, and that's kind of what gets me out of bed in the morning. I love teaching other people how to level that up so they can become their own networking powerhouses.
Nice. Yeah, and that's interesting. I love your hashtag 0 to 1 networker. That is, did I get it right? I got it right.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's funny, the hashtags, much like a lot of people on LinkedIn probably know me, the guy with the orange sunglasses, and much as with that hashtag, it was just something that kind of I threw into a post, and it just kind of grew on its own, and I never really thought about getting into branding and stuff like that until one day a few months ago, a year ago at this point. COVID changes the time.
Oh yeah.
And someone said, "Oh, your branding is so on point. It's great." And I was like, Yes, it is. This was absolutely planned.
I did that on purpose.
It just was like one of those things that was, I started doing it, and I didn't realize at the time until later on that this is something that people need help with and really value, because I love talking to people, but I recognize there are so many people out there for whom it's more daunting than it is to me. I can't sit down and write like a line of code. And some people can just, boom, get it. And I'm super jealous of those people and that skill set. But I was looking for other things to help people with, because my background wasn't in branding, networking, consulting. Academically, I studied history. My background is in the music world. I was in for like over a decade at this point. My first startup out of college was a music startup. I was in the tech industry. I'm still a tech founder. I've done tech journalism. And when I closed my first startup in 2017, my whole identity was wrapped up in the music thing. It had been my thing since high school. And I needed like a break. You just need and I needed a place where I could feel that I could be open. I think a lot of people on LinkedIn hopefully also recognize my content for being very open and authentic about things like mental health. I've been writing a lot about, like I live with anxiety and sometimes depression. And I think that we live in a world where it's often too easy to feel like living with those things or something else makes you like unfundable or not a good business person.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just not true. Like everybody's dealing with something. A lot of times it's multiple somethings. And like, that just makes you human.
Right.
That was a journey, for me to realize, like, if somebody's not going to invest in my company because I have my own human journey, like there's money and opportunity elsewhere.
Yep. Exactly.
And so that's kind of what I love when I tell people how to build. I mean, I have built stupid networks in the most ridiculous ways. I tell people, and this is 100% true, I have built a stupid, almost criminal network on the back of like Friends clips and Boy Meets World gifts.
Right.
I mean, it should be illegal because it doesn't have anything to do with like pitching an article or, pitching your company. A lot of times the on-ramp that works for me is who's this person? What kind of music do they like? What kind of sense of humor? What kind of TV shows? And when you approach people as people and not as commodities, then it gets easier. And I can appreciate how daunting it can be to approach like that investor or that journalist or that founder who's well known.
Yeah.
And so what I try to teach people is consistency, patience, humility, value creation. Like these things are long term. And I tell all my clients or anybody who will listen, focus on 10 months, not 2, because it's that long tail.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I we talked about this prior to recording. I think being organic as well is what's helped me, right? I mean, we didn't go through a whole typical podcast or typical video cast like this. You go through a list of questions first. And for me, that's the reason I call it Coffee with Bob, because when you're having a coffee with someone, and actually got a little stuck in my throat, it's more natural that way, right? We're just sitting down in a Starbucks or a little coffee house, just having a conversation, which is great.
Well, it's so interesting that you bring up the coffee example, because a couple of years ago, I was thinking about, as I was looking for the next thing after I closed my first startup, I just was watching my Twitter feed, and one thing that stuck out to me, and I'm sure you've heard this all the time, and I'm sure lots of people hear this all the time. Can I pick your brain over coffee? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see that come up all the time, and I would see people who are certainly influential in my network, some of whom were friends of mine, some of whom were not connections yet, but saying, investors, journalists saying, don't ask me to pick my brain over coffee, right? Because they have a million things every day, and I don't even want to know what their email inbox looks like. It's probably a war zone. And what was so interesting was that didn't match what I had in my own private inbox. This is before COVID, which was messages like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, when you're in San Francisco or in LA or New York, like shoot me a message and like, let's grab a coffee, right? It didn't match. I was like, why are they saying one thing publicly and then something else privately? And it occurred to me that when somebody says, don't ask me to pick my brain over coffee, it's not necessarily code for go away, don't ever speak to me again. Oftentimes it's, I don't know you.
Right.
It's not a negative thing. I just don't know you. I don't know what you're about. I don't know what your mission is. I don't know this. I don't know that. And so it takes time to generate that dialogue. And that actually slides right into another piece of business gospel, which sounds great in a tweet, but it's not great in practice. Always have an ask, right? Always go into every meeting with an ask, which to me means have a reason for the conversation.
Right.
You want to learn something from somebody, you want to create some value, you want to start, a possible relationship and build from there. But oftentimes it gets, I think, taken to the extreme, and it becomes this air of like, where's my money? Where's my check? Is this going to be worth my time kind of a thing? And that's just not, it's not attractive. People just don't respond to that. I mean, maybe some people do.
Some people, yeah.
In my experience, most people don't.
Right.
And I tell people to focus on, vanity metrics they make you feel great in the moment, but they ultimately don't mean anything.
Right.
So don't focus on how many connections or how many followers you have. It's what's the caliber of those followers. And I'm always focused on, when we talk about have an ask, the mentality is the goal of any conversation is to get to the next conversation.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
I just want people to walk away from that conversation feeling like, okay, yeah, I want to pick up his phone call. I'd like to answer his email,
Yeah.
It's that consistent, empathetic patience.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's, it's amazing to me, Adam. You're such a young guy, and you've got some real value to add and some terrific insight. I wish that these talks were a little bit longer. We'll definitely have to do a part 2.
We could do another one.
Yeah, let's do another one. But thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Again, if you're not connected to Adam, if you're not following him or not engaging with him, you're doing yourself a disservice. This young man needs to be followed. He's got some really good stuff that he posts. Adam, thank you again. I appreciate it. And we are definitely going to schedule a part 2 with you, young man.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.